Sarah Chen floated in the observation deck of the human transport ship as it approached the massive council station. The structure was bigger than any city on Earth, spinning slowly against the backdrop of stars near the galaxy's center. Lights flickered across its surface like a constellation of fireflies. She had dreamed of this moment since she was a child reading about space exploration. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said General Marcus Stone, joining her at the viewing window. His reflection showed a weathered face with gray hair and sharp eyes that never seemed to rest. "It's everything we hoped for," Sarah replied. As Earth's chief diplomat, she had spent 3 years preparing for this meeting with the Galactic Council. Humanity had been alone in the universe for so long. Now they would finally join the community of advanced civilizations. The Council had made first contact 6 months ago. Their ships appeared in Earth's solar system without warning, but they came with messages of peace. The alien representatives were polite and seemed genuinely excited to meet humans. They spoke of shared knowledge, protection from hostile forces in the galaxy, and technologies that could solve Earth's problems. "I still think we should be more careful," Marcus said quietly. "They found us too easily. Their technology is too advanced, and they seem very eager to get us to sign their treaty." Sarah turned to look at him. Marcus was a good soldier and a smart man, but he saw threats everywhere. "They've been watching us for decades, Marcus. They waited until we developed faster-than-light travel before making contact. That shows respect for our development. Or it shows they were waiting for us to become useful to them." Before Sarah could answer, their escort arrived. The alien was tall and thin with blue skin and large black eyes. Its name was Keth-9, and it served as humanity's guide to council procedures. It spoke perfect English, though its voice had a musical quality that reminded Sarah of wind chimes. "Ambassador Chen, General Stone, the council is ready to receive you," Keth-9 said with what might have been a smile. "This is a historic day for your species. You should feel proud." They followed Keth-9 through corridors that stretched for miles. The station was home to millions of beings from hundreds of different worlds. Sarah saw creatures that looked like walking trees, others that seemed to be made of living crystal, and some that appeared to be pure energy contained in mechanical bodies. All of them moved with purpose through the clean, bright hallways. The council chamber was enormous. Representatives from dozens of species sat in a circle around a central platform, where Sarah and her team would present humanity's case for membership. The air was filled with a soft humming sound that Keth-9 explained was the universal translator, working to help everyone understand each other. At the center of the chamber sat the council elders. There were 12 of them, each representing one of the founding species of the galactic government. They were ancient beings who had guided the galaxy for thousands of years. Sarah felt a mix of honor and nervousness as she approached the speaking platform. "Welcome, humans of Earth," spoke the lead elder, a being that looked like a large octopus with silver skin. "I am Elder Voss Prime. We have watched your species with great interest. You have achieved faster-than-light travel in record time. Your adaptability is remarkable." Sarah bowed respectfully. "Elder Voss Prime honored council members on behalf of humanity. I thank you for this opportunity. We are eager to learn from your wisdom and contribute to galactic peace." "Your enthusiasm is refreshing," said another elder, this one resembling a giant praying mantis with golden wings. "Most species are more cautious when they first encounter us, but humans seem ready to embrace the future." The council presentation was impressive. They showed holographic displays of beautiful worlds where council species lived in harmony. They demonstrated technologies that could heal diseases, control weather, and provide unlimited clean energy. They spoke of protection fleets that kept dangerous species away from peaceful worlds. "Membership in the council comes with both privileges and responsibilities," Elder Voss Prime explained. "New species must prove their commitment to galactic order. This involves a probationary period where your worlds will be guided by council advisors." Sarah studied the treaty documents that appeared on her personal screen. The language was complex, but the main points seemed clear. Humanity would gain access to council technology and protection. In return, they would follow council laws and allow council representatives to oversee their development. Marcus leaned over to whisper in her ear. "Section 47 says they can requisition our resources for galactic security needs. Section 62 gives them control over our defense systems during the probationary period." "Those are standard clauses," Keth-9 said. apparently overhearing despite Marcus's quiet voice. All new species must accept guidance during their adjustment period. It protects everyone. Elder Voss Prime's large eyes focused on Sarah. Your general seems concerned. Please understand that these measures are for your own protection. Young species often make mistakes that can endanger themselves and others. The Council has centuries of experience in helping civilizations mature safely. Sarah looked at her team. Besides Marcus, she had brought Dr. Lisa Park, Earth's top xenobiologist, and Commander Jake Torres, a naval intelligence officer. Lisa seemed excited by everything she was seeing. Jake looked thoughtful but not alarmed. Marcus clearly had reservations, but he was always suspicious. How long does the probationary period last? Sarah asked. That depends on how quickly your species adapts to galactic standards, replied the mantis-like elder. Some species complete it in 50 years. Others take longer. The Zerani needed nearly 2 centuries, but they were quite primitive when we found them. Sarah made her decision. Earth needed this opportunity. Climate change was threatening their world. Their technology was advancing slowly. War still broke out between nations. The Council offered solutions to all of these problems. On behalf of humanity, I accept the terms of Council membership, Sarah announced. The chamber filled with sounds that the translator interpreted as applause. Elder Voss Prime extended a long tentacle that Sarah shook carefully. The treaty was signed using a device that recorded her biometric signature and made the agreement official under galactic law. Welcome to the galactic community, Elder Voss Prime said. Council ships will arrive at Earth within 1 month to begin the integration process. Your species is about to enter a new age of prosperity and peace. As they left the chamber, Sarah felt like she was walking on air. Humanity had just taken its biggest step forward since leaving Africa, hundreds of thousands of years ago. They would have access to technology beyond their wildest dreams. Marcus walked beside her in silence until they reached their quarters on the station. Once the door closed behind them, he turned to face her. I hope you're right about this, Sarah, I really do. But something feels wrong. Did you notice how eager they were? How quickly they wanted us to sign? And did you see how the other species representatives looked at us? What do you mean? They look sorry for us. Sarah dismissed his concerns, but as she lay in her bed that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had missed something important. Outside her window, the Council station continued its slow rotation, and somewhere in its depths, decisions were being made about humanity's future. In 6 months, she would understand why Marcus had been right to worry. But by then, it would be too late to change what she had set in motion. The trap was closing around humanity, and they didn't even know they were caught. 6 months after signing the treaty, Elizabeth Reyes stood in the command center of New Shanghai Colony on Mars and watched her world fall apart. Through the reinforced windows, she could see Council ships hovering over the city like dark clouds. The ships were sleek and beautiful, but their presence felt threatening rather than protective. Governor, they're demanding another 30% increase in mineral exports, reported her aide, Captain Williams. His voice was tight with anger. That's on top of the 60% they already take. We won't have enough left to maintain basic operations. Elizabeth rubbed her temples where a headache was building. The Council had arrived at Earth exactly 1 month after the treaty signing, just as they promised. At first, everything seemed wonderful. They brought medical technology that cured cancer and extended human lifespans. They provided clean energy systems that ended pollution. They even helped establish new colonies on Mars and Europa. But then the demand started. First, it was minor adjustments to human industrial output. The Council needed certain rare metals for their ships, and Earth had good deposits. Then it was voluntary relocation of human scientists to Council research facilities where they could learn from advanced civilizations. Finally, it was direct control over human defense systems for coordination with Council security forces. Elizabeth had protested each change, but the Council representatives always had reasonable explanations. They spoke of efficiency, security, and the greater good of galactic civilization. The treaty language supported their demands, even when those demands felt wrong. What about the other colonies? Elizabeth asked. Europa is complying. They don't have much choice with Council ships in orbit. The asteroid mining stations are being converted to full Council control. They're calling it optimization of resource extraction. Elizabeth walked to her desk and activated the secure communication system. General Stone's face appeared on the screen. He looked older than when she had last seen him, with new lines around his eyes and gray streaks in his hair. "Marcus, how bad is it on Earth?" "Bad and getting worse," he replied without preamble. "They've taken control of all our defense satellites. They're calling it an upgrade, but we both know what it really is. If we try to resist, they can shut down our entire planetary defense grid with the push of a button." Elizabeth felt a chill run down her spine. What about Sarah? Has she been able to negotiate any changes? Marcus's expression darkened. "Sarah is under house arrest on the council station. They claim it's for her own protection while they investigate irregularities in human behavior. She managed to send one coded message before they cut off her communications." "What did it say?" "She thinks the council is afraid of something about us. That's why they move so fast to control us. She believes we have some capability they don't want us to develop." Before Elizabeth could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the command center. Captain Williams rushed to his station and began reading incoming reports. "Governor, we have council enforcement ships approaching fast. They're broadcasting a message on all frequencies." The main screen switched to show a council representative. This one was different from the friendly diplomats they had met before. Its face was angular and cold, with metallic implants covering half its skull. When it spoke, the universal translator made its voice sound like grinding metal. "Governor Reyes of Mars Colony, you have been found in violation of Council Production Directive 847B. Your resistance to lawful resource requisitions threatens galactic stability. You will report to the designated council vessel for corrective counseling." Elizabeth straightened her shoulders. "Captain Williams, open a channel. This is Governor Elizabeth Reyes. Mars Colony is in full compliance with all treaty obligations. We have provided all required resources and followed all established procedures. I will not report to your ship." The alien's face remained expressionless. "Your compliance has been deemed insufficient. Corrective action will now be implemented." The screen went dark. Moments later, the ground shook as energy weapons struck the colony's power generation facilities. The lights flickered and emergency power kicked in. Through the windows, Elizabeth could see explosions blooming across the city as council ships systematically destroyed infrastructure. "They're targeting the water treatment plants," Williams reported, his voice filled with horror. "And the atmospheric processors. They're not trying to kill us. They're making us helpless." The bombardment lasted exactly 10 minutes. When it stopped, Mars Colony was still habitable, but barely. Without power generation, water treatment, and atmospheric processing, the 40,000 colonists would be completely dependent on council support within days. Elizabeth's communication system crackled to life. The metallic-faced alien appeared again. "Governor Reyes, Mars Colony now exists under direct council administration. Your authority has been terminated. Council Supervisor Zek 7 will arrive within 6 hours to assume control. You will cooperate with all directives or face additional corrective measures." The transmission ended, leaving Elizabeth staring at a blank screen. Around her, the command center was filled with the sounds of damage reports and emergency communications. Her colony was defeated, and she hadn't even been able to fight back. "Governor, what are your orders?" Captain Williams asked quietly. Elizabeth looked out at her burning city, then at the faces of her staff. These were good people who had trusted her to protect them. They had come to Mars to build something new and wonderful. Instead, they had become prisoners. "Send a message to all human colonies on Earth," she said finally. "Tell them what happened here. Make sure they understand what the council really is. Ma'am, they'll cut our communications before we can send much. Then make every word count." As her staff worked to send warning messages across human space, Elizabeth thought about the treaty she had supported 6 months ago. The language had seemed so reasonable, so focused on mutual benefit and cooperation, but buried in the complex legal text were the chains that now bound humanity. She thought about the other species in the council, the ones Marcus said had looked sorry for humans during the treaty ceremony. How many of them had stood where she was standing now? How many had watched their worlds burn while alien voices spoke of efficiency and the greater good? The council had done this before. They had refined their methods over centuries, learning exactly how to trap species without destroying them completely. They needed humans to be functional enough to work, desperate enough to comply, and isolated enough to prevent resistance. But as Elizabeth watched council ships patrol over her ruined colony, she allowed herself one small smile. The council might have conquered Mars Colony, But they had made one critical mistake. They had left witnesses. Every human in the galaxy now knew the truth about their protectors. The war hadn't started yet, but the first shot had been fired. And despite everything, Elizabeth found herself hoping that Marcus Stone was right about humans having some hidden capability the Council feared. Because whatever it was, humanity was going to need it. Outside, the Council ships continued their patrol, and Supervisor Zek 7 was probably already planning how to extract maximum value from Mars colony's enslaved population. But in hidden corners of the colony, people were already talking about resistance. The Council had won this battle, but Elizabeth had a feeling the war was just beginning. General Marcus Stone stood in a cave system beneath the Rocky Mountains, 200 feet underground and completely hidden from Council sensors. The facility had been built during the Cold War as a backup command center, but now it served as the heart of human resistance. Banks of computers lined the walls, and holographic displays showed the positions of human and Council forces throughout the solar system. "Report," Marcus said to Colonel Sarah Kim, his intelligence chief. 17 underground facilities are now operational, Kim replied, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface. "We have contact with resistance cells on Europa, Titan, and 3 asteroid mining stations. Total active resistance members are at 47,000 and growing." Marcus nodded grimly. It had taken 8 months since the Mars attack to build this network. 8 months of careful recruitment, hidden construction, and constant fear of discovery. The Council thought they had broken human resistance when they made examples of Mars colony and 2 asteroid bases. They were wrong. "What about the Black projects?" "Better than we hoped," Kim answered with the first smile Marcus had seen from her in weeks. Blackwood Base in Antarctica is fully operational. The Council never found it because it was built under the ice shelf with nuclear-powered boring machines. Their sensors can't penetrate that deep. Marcus walked to the main display showing a cross-section of human space. Red dots marked Council installations and patrol routes. Blue dots showed hidden human facilities and safe routes between them. It looked like a game board, but this game was for the survival of human civilization. "Show me Blackwood's progress." The display shifted to show technical specifications that made Marcus's heart race. Dr. Amanda Foster and her team had been working in secret for 15 years on projects the Council knew nothing about. Experimental faster-than-light drives that didn't require the Council's jump gate network. Weapons designed to exploit weaknesses in Council technology. Most importantly, ships built with stealth systems that made them nearly invisible to Council sensors. "How many ships do we have?" 37 operational stealth frigates, 12 experimental destroyers, and 1 prototype battleship that Dr. Foster calls the Surprise. Kim's smile grew wider. "The Council thinks human shipbuilding is limited to the civilian vessels they monitor. They have no idea we've been building a secret fleet for over a decade." Marcus studied the specifications. The human ships were smaller than Council vessels, but they were faster and more maneuverable. More importantly, they were designed by people who understood warfare in ways the Council couldn't imagine. Most alien species had achieved interstellar travel through cooperation and resource sharing. Humans had reached the stars through competition, conflict, and the constant drive to build better weapons than their enemies. "What about allies?" Colonel Kim activated another display showing species profiles. Dr. Chen was right. The Council has done this before, and not every species is happy about it. "We've made contact with the Korath resistance movement. They were conquered by the Council 60 years ago, and they've been waiting for someone with the military capability to challenge the system." "The Korath were warriors before the Council found them?" "No, sir. That's what makes this interesting. They were peaceful traders, but 60 years of oppression has changed them. They've been studying human military history through captured databases. They want to learn how to fight back." Marcus felt a cold satisfaction settle in his chest. The Council had made the same mistake that many human enemies had made throughout history. They had assumed that their victims would stay victims forever. They didn't understand that oppression could create the very resistance it was meant to prevent. "There's more," Kim continued. "We've also heard from the Zelani. They were the first species the Council integrated 300 years ago. They've been slaves so long that most of their people have forgotten what freedom looks like. But their scientists have been secretly documenting Council technology and looking for weaknesses." "Weaknesses?" "The Council's strength is also their weakness. Everything is centralized. All their ships use the same power systems. All their communications go through the same networks. All their jump gates are controlled from the same facility. If someone could coordinate simultaneous strikes across multiple systems, Marcus understood immediately. We could cripple their entire infrastructure at once. Exactly. But it would require perfect timing and absolute secrecy. If the Council discovers the plan before we execute it, they'll have time to adapt. Marcus walked to another display showing Council troop movements. The aliens were confident in their control over human space. They had reduced their patrol schedules and pulled back some of their enforcement fleets. They thought humanity was broken. How long before we're ready? Dr. Foster says she needs 6 more months to complete the battleship. The Korath need time to prepare their people. The Zilani want to coordinate with other enslaved species. I'd say 8 months minimum for a coordinated operation. Too long, Marcus said immediately. The Council is planning something. Our intelligence suggests they're going to start relocating Earth's population to labor camps in other systems. If we wait 8 months, there might not be enough humans left to save. Kim looked troubled. Sir, if we move too early, we might lose everything. This is our only chance. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying the displays around him. 3 billion humans on Earth were living under Council occupation. Millions more in the colonies were working as slaves. Every day they waited meant more suffering for his people. But Kim was right about the risks. If they failed, the Council would crush the resistance completely. There would be no second chance. Send a message to Dr. Chen, Marcus said finally. Tell her we need to know everything she's learned about Council operations. And contact our allies. Ask them how much they can do in 6 months instead of 8. Yes, sir. What about our own preparations? Marcus looked at the display showing their hidden fleet. 37 stealth frigates weren't much compared to the Council's thousands of ships, but they were invisible to Council sensors, and they were crewed by humans who understood something the Council had never learned to value: the willingness to sacrifice everything for freedom. We prepare for war, he said quietly, and we make sure the Council regrets the day they decided to enslave humanity. As his staff began implementing new orders, Marcus thought about Ambassador Sarah Chen, still imprisoned on the Council station. She had tried to save humanity through diplomacy, and ended up delivering them into slavery. Now it was his turn to try a different approach. The Council had taught humanity what happened to young species who trusted in alien promises. Soon they would learn what happened when that young species decided to fight back. In hidden facilities across human space, engineers worked on weapons the Council couldn't imagine. In secret communications networks, oppressed aliens shared information about their captors' weaknesses. And in the depths of space, invisible human ships moved toward positions where they could strike at the heart of galactic civilization. The Council thought they had won. They were about to discover they had made the biggest mistake in their long history. They had given humanity something to fight for, and time to prepare for war. Elder Voss Prime floated in his private chamber aboard the Council command ship, studying reports from across human space. His tentacles moved restlessly as he processed the information. After 18 months of occupation, humanity should have been fully integrated into the Council system. Instead, there were troubling signs of continued resistance. The humans are proving more difficult than anticipated, he transmitted to the other elders through their neural link. Production quotas are being met, but barely. There have been 17 sabotage incidents this month alone. Elder Kest 9, the mantis-like being who oversaw enforcement operations, responded with irritation coloring her mental voice. Perhaps we were too gentle with them. The destruction of Mars' colony should have been sufficient to ensure compliance. The Korath required similar lessons, added Elder Thane 4, his crystalline form pulsing with cold light. Some species need more convincing than others. Voss Prime's large eyes focused on a particular report that troubled him. Human scientists were being uncooperative at Council research facilities. Human workers were developing mysterious illnesses that prevented them from meeting production targets. And most concerning, several human military officers had simply vanished from supposedly secure facilities. I believe we may have underestimated this species, Voss Prime transmitted carefully. Our initial assessment focused on their technological development and resource potential. We may have overlooked other capabilities, such as... Kest 9's mental tone was dismissive. They are a young species with primitive technology. Their resistance is nothing more than emotional reaction to necessary change. Before Voss Prime could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. A junior council member rushed into his chamber, its blue skin flushed with excitement and fear. Elder Voss Prime, we're receiving an emergency transmission from Supervisor Zek-7 on Earth. The humans they're doing something unprecedented. Voss Prime extended a tentacle to the communication device. Supervisor Zek-7's metallic face appeared on the screen, but his usual composure was cracked. Behind him, council technicians were working frantically at control stations. Elders, the humans have begun a massive evacuation of their homeworld. Civilian transports are launching from hidden facilities we never detected. Their entire population appears to be fleeing into deep space. Impossible, Kes-9's voice cut through the transmission. We control all human spaceflight capabilities. We monitor every ship they build. That's just it, Elder Kes-9. These ships don't match any designs in our databases. They're using faster-than-light drives that bypass our jump gate network entirely. Our sensors can barely track them. Voss Prime felt a cold certainty settling in his mind. The humans had been more prepared than the council realized. How many have escaped? Unknown, Elder. They're using some kind of stealth technology. We estimate at least 2 million have already left Earth, but the actual number could be much higher. The transmission continued with reports from other human colonies. Europa was evacuating through underground tunnels that led to hidden spaceports. The asteroid mining stations were abandoning their facilities and scattering in directions that made no strategic sense. Even the prison camps where human scientists were held were somehow emptying, despite full council security. This is coordinated, Voss Prime realized. They've been planning this for months. Elders, Supervisor Zek-7 continued, his voice tight with worry. There's more. Before they began evacuating, the humans broadcast a message across all council communication networks. Every species in the galaxy received it. Show us. The screen changed to show a human in military uniform. Voss Prime recognized General Marcus Stone from the intelligence files. The human's face was calm, but his eyes held something the Elder had never seen directed at the council before. Absolute determination. This message is directed to all non-human species under council authority, Stone said in the universal trade language. The council has deceived you as they deceived us. They offer protection and prosperity, but they deliver only slavery. They have done this to your people, and your people's people, for generations, but it ends now. Stone paused, looking directly into the camera with those disturbing human eyes. We are leaving our worlds, but we are not running away. We are clearing the battlefield. To all council forces and administrators, you should have left us alone. To all enslaved species, help is coming. To the council elders, your reign ends today. The message continued with a single word that somehow carried more threat than any elaborate declaration of war. Run. As the transmission ended, reports began flooding in from across council space. Human ships were appearing near alien worlds not to attack, but to broadcast messages to the local populations. They were sharing information about council deception, offering technological assistance to resistance movements, and providing evidence of the galaxy's true history. They're trying to start a general rebellion, Elder Thane 4 observed with growing alarm. If the other species believe them, assemble the enforcement fleets, Kes-9 commanded. We'll crush this resistance before it spreads. But Voss Prime was studying tactical displays that showed something impossible. Human ships were moving faster than council vessels, appearing and disappearing at will, and somehow coordinating across distances that should have made communication impossible. Wait, he said, his mental voice cutting through the other's anger. Look at their movement patterns. They're not running randomly, they're taking positions. The tactical display updated to show the true scope of what was happening. Human forces were positioning themselves near critical council installations throughout the galaxy. Jump gate control stations, communication networks, resource processing facilities, military bases that had been secure for centuries. How many ships do they have? Voss Prime asked quietly. Unknown, reported a council intelligence officer. Our sensors can't get accurate counts, but based on observed movements, we estimate several hundred vessels of unknown capability. Several hundred ships against the council's thousands should have been meaningless. But these ships had appeared from nowhere, moved faster than anything in the Council's fleet, and were coordinated by a species that the Council had supposedly defeated. Elders, came another urgent transmission, this one from the Korath home system. The Korath military commanders are requesting permission to leave their bases. They claim they need to prepare defenses against human aggression, but our analysis suggests they may be planning to join the humans. Similar reports arrived from other systems. The Zilani were experiencing technical difficulties with their production facilities. The Therian were requesting to relocate civilians for safety. Species that had been model Council citizens for decades were suddenly finding reasons to move away from Council oversight. Voss Prime realized the true scope of the disaster they faced. The humans hadn't just escaped. They had revealed the truth to every enslaved species in the galaxy. Worse, they had proven that resistance was possible. "Send the message to all Council fleets," he commanded. Maximum alert status. Prepare for coordinated attacks across multiple systems, and contact the hegemony. Tell them we may need direct intervention. As his orders went out across the galaxy, Voss Prime found himself thinking about the human ambassador they still held prisoner. Sarah Chen had seemed so eager to please during the treaty negotiations, but perhaps she had understood more than she revealed. The Council had conquered dozens of species over the centuries. They had refined their methods to perfection, but they had never faced anything like humanity. A species that viewed warfare as an art form and freedom as worth any sacrifice. The humans had asked the galaxy to run. Soon, Voss Prime suspected, the Council would understand why that had been a warning rather than a threat. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the human battleship Defiance and watched through the view screen as the Council's ancient homeworld grew larger. 3 years had passed since her imprisonment on the Council station. 3 years since humanity had scattered to the stars and begun the war that was now ending. "Ma'am, we're receiving a surrender transmission from the planetary surface," reported Commander Torres, the same naval intelligence officer who had accompanied her to that first meeting with the Council. His uniform now bore the insignia of the Free Galaxy Alliance, the coalition of liberated species that had grown from humanity's initial rebellion. "Put it through," Sarah said quietly. The face that appeared on the screen was Elder Voss Prime, but he looked nothing like the confident leader who had welcomed humanity to the galaxy. His tentacles hung limp with exhaustion, and his large eyes held the hollow look of someone who had watched everything he believed in crumble around him. "Ambassador Chen," he said in the universal trade language, we request terms for surrender." Sarah studied the alien who had orchestrated humanity's enslavement. Behind her on the bridge stood representatives from dozens of species, Korath warriors who had learned human tactics, Zilani scientists who had perfected new technologies, Therian engineers who had helped build the Alliance fleet. All of them were free because humanity had refused to accept slavery. "The terms are simple, Elder Voss Prime," Sarah replied. "Complete dissolution of the Council government, immediate release of all enslaved populations, full disclosure of Council crimes and the locations of all prison facilities, and the surrender of the hegemony leadership for trial." "The hegemony?" Voss Prime's voice trailed off. "The hegemony abandoned us 6 months ago. When your forces broke through our outer defenses, they retreated to the dark space beyond the galactic rim. They left us to face the consequences of policies they had enforced for millennia." Sarah felt a mix of satisfaction and disgust. The ancient beings who had created the Council's system of oppression had fled rather than face judgment. It was fitting, in a way. They had spent so long hiding behind others that running was their only remaining skill. "Then you'll provide us with all information about their whereabouts and capabilities," Sarah said. "The Alliance will find them eventually." Through the view screen, she could see the massive fleet that surrounded the Council homeworld. Human ships flew alongside vessels from every species in the galaxy. Some of those ships had been captured from Council forces. Others had been built in hidden shipyards using technologies that combined human engineering with alien innovations. All of them represented something the Council had never understood: free beings working together by choice rather than force. The war had lasted 3 years, but the outcome had been decided much sooner. The Council's first mistake was underestimating human military capabilities. The secret shipyards General Stone had built produced vessels that could outfight anything in the Council fleet. Human tactics developed through centuries of warfare proved devastatingly effective against species that had known only peace or submission. But their second mistake was even more critical. They had assumed that other species would remain passive while humanity fought for freedom. Instead, the human example had sparked uprisings across the galaxy. The Korath had declared independence within 6 months. The Zelani had sabotaged council facilities and joined the human fleet. Even peaceful species like the Valdari had provided intelligence and resources to the Alliance. "Ma'am," reported the communications officer, "we're receiving confirmation from all Alliance fleets. The last council strongholds have surrendered. The galaxy is free." Sarah nodded, but she felt no triumph. Too many people had died in this war. Too many worlds had been damaged. The victory was necessary, but the cost had been enormous. "Elder Voss Prime," she said, turning back to the communication screen, "you and the other surviving council members will be transported to the Alliance Tribunal Station. You'll be tried for crimes against galactic civilization. The proceedings will be public, and representatives from every enslaved species will have the opportunity to present evidence." "I understand," Voss Prime replied quietly. "For what it's worth, Ambassador Chen, I believed we were bringing order to chaos. The council system had maintained peace for thousands of years." "You maintained the peace of the grave," Sarah said coldly. "You turned living civilizations into museums. You stole the future from billions of beings because you were afraid of change. And what happens now? Your alliance includes species with conflicting interests and different values. How long before your coalition breaks apart and returns to warfare?" Sarah looked around her bridge at the representatives of the Free Galaxy Alliance. These beings had learned to work together without force or deception. They had proven that cooperation based on mutual respect was stronger than unity imposed through fear. "That's for the galaxy to decide," she said. "Free beings will make free choices. Some of those choices will be mistakes. Some will lead to conflicts. But they'll be our mistakes and our conflicts, not yours." The transmission ended and Sarah walked to the view screen. Below them, the council homeworld was already changing. Alliance ships were landing at spaceports, bringing medical supplies and food to populations that had been cut off from resources during the final siege. Former slaves were working alongside their liberators to establish new governments and plan for reconstruction. "Ma'am," Commander Torres said quietly, "General Stone is requesting to speak with you from Earth." Sarah smiled for the first time in months. Earth had been liberated 8 months ago when Alliance forces broke the Council blockade. The planet was healing from years of occupation, and its population was slowly returning from hidden colonies throughout the galaxy. Marcus Stone's face appeared on a private communication screen. The general looked older but happier than Sarah had seen him since before first contact with the Council. "Congratulations, Ambassador," he said. "I hear the last Council forces have surrendered." "It's over, Marcus." "We won." "No," Marcus replied, his expression serious. "We survived. We freed the galaxy from tyranny. But now comes the hard part, building something better to replace it." Sarah understood what he meant. The Alliance had been united by a common enemy, but that enemy was gone. Now dozens of species with different cultures, technologies, and goals had to learn to live together as equals. There would be disagreements, conflicts, and probably some wars. But there would also be growth, discovery, and the chance for every species to reach its full potential. "The hegemony is still out there," Sarah said. "They'll be planning their return." "Let them plan," Marcus replied with a cold smile. "They're used to dealing with slaves and broken civilizations. When they come back, they'll find a galaxy full of free peoples who know how to fight. I almost feel sorry for them." As the communication ended, Sarah thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. Humanity had first reached for the stars seeking knowledge and companionship. They had found slavery and deception instead. But in fighting for their freedom, they had discovered something more valuable than any council technology: the strength that came from beings who chose to stand together against oppression. The galaxy was free, but it was also wounded. It would take generations to heal the damage caused by millennia of council rule. Species would need to rediscover their own cultures and technologies. Ancient grudges would need to be resolved. New forms of government would need to be created. But for the first time in thousands of years, the future was unwritten. Every species in the galaxy could choose its own path, make its own mistakes, and reach for its own dreams. The Council had promised order and delivered stagnation. The Alliance offered chaos and the possibility of greatness. Sarah looked out at the stars and smiled. Humanity had answered the Council's deception with a single word: run. The galaxy had listened and everything had changed. The age of the Council was over. The age of freedom had begun.